Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Business Builders Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Stannis. There was a time when only large corporations and government agencies had to worry about hackers and cyber criminals, but not anymore. Today, they now pose an ever-increasing threat to small businesses. Why? Because small businesses are amongst the easiest targets. That means it's time to start thinking about website security for your small business. But first, let's meet today's guest, Nella DeCesar, the Managing Director of WBN Marketing. Nella, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you again. Why don't you take a couple minutes and kind of, introduce the listeners who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Nella DeCesar. I'm the Managing Director of WBN Marketing of Florida. And we have been in business here based in North Naples for about 12 years. We serve clients from Marco Island to the Cape, and we've also got a handful of national clients across the country as well. We are a full service marketing company. We do a lot of digital advertising. We build a lot of websites, those types of things, but we also do a lot of brand development, graphic design, direct mail. So we're really your one-stop shop for all things marketing.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us again. We definitely appreciate it. I'm actually really interested in today's topic because, like we had discussed, it pretty much affects everyone, right?
Absolutely.
So again, our topic today is all about website security and what, you don't know can really hurt you, your business, and of course,
absolutely,
your visitors. So I guess a good place to start is, why should a small business, why should a business care about their website security?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, as I mentioned, we build a lot of websites, we host a lot of websites and perform maintenance and security. So, we're kind of on the front lines of seeing what's going on out there. And I will tell you, website hacking was pretty prevalent before COVID. And now it's literally out of control. So, and I think, and I think we touched on it, there are so many more people on the internet now since COVID because we've got a lot of people, working remotely, working on Zoom. My staff here at WBN is fully remote. We were remote before COVID. So, that's kind of the nature of how people are working these days. And unfortunately, the hackers see that. So they are out in droves. And especially like the small to medium sized business. And, I get this a lot from business owners who say, well, you know what, Nella, we only have, we're a small business. We have 4 people, we lay bricks for a living, pavers. Why is a hacker interested in us? Okay. Well, here's the answer. Hackers do things for 2 reasons. They're either trying to steal identity, get credit card information, get any kind of personal information they can to obviously perform fraudulent activities. And the other reason is for fun. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but hackers love to destroy websites and cost people money. They, like to pick up, information and identity theft along the way, but frankly, they're fine with just destroying a website just because. So there's really no rhyme or reason, and the hacker isn't sitting there thinking, "Oh well, this company has no money." Hackers that live in China or across the globe, and there's hackers right here in the good old U.S. of A. So don't forget that either. They're not looking at how big your business is. They're looking to see what you have stored on that website. Some websites have databases. Some websites don't necessarily store credit cards, which is a good thing, but they have people's names, they have users. And frankly, a user does not have to have information stored on the back of a website to be hacked. They can just go to a website and be hacked. So, if you're not worried about your company being hacked and you don't see a reason why, you should at least be worried about the people and your clients who are visiting your website. Because if your website is not secure, then they are at risk as well. So it really doesn't matter what size business you are or what you have to offer or how deep your pockets are, you're still a target. And I see that every day. Like, for example, we host over 200 websites for clients. And on a daily basis, we probably get upwards of 200 to 300 attempts a day on those websites. They're not getting in because we have like the best server money can buy and literally 3 layers of protection. And I also have people sitting in a room monitoring our websites daily. So security is very important, but if you don't have that protection in place, you are definitely a target. And it's not just your websites. And I know the IT professionals out there would agree, your email, which is connected to the domain of your website, is also at risk. So if your email gets hacked, guess what? You're going to have problems. So yeah, everybody's at risk. I can't say that enough. Everyone's at risk. So it's really, and here's the other reason why small to mid-sized businesses are also at risk, because these hackers know that the smaller business owner is not spending the time or money to put these security measures in place. They know that, and they know that your security is weak. So you are definitely a target. And the other thing to remember that's important is once you become a target, you will become a target again. It opens the door. So the best preventative measure is just to have that security in place from the get-go, and that's your website and email. So you don't have to go through this. It's bad out there.
Yeah, and I know you actually covered a couple of points, and I want to try to dive into a couple of them if we can. So you had talked about essentially, people coming to your website and stealing your customer information, your customer data.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little bit about people coming to your website and gaining access to your email domains. You had touched on, credit card numbers, information, if you've got an e-commerce store or if you're, if you have transactions going through your website, obviously all that information is, at risk.
Right.
Is there a more common attempt? Are people trying to just get credit card information? Is it just for data? Like what do you guys normally see?
It's all of it, really. Obviously for people who have e-commerce websites, you're going to be a little more at risk. Some of these e-commerce websites have user logins. For example, Amazon. Okay, that's the best example I can give you. I have an Amazon account. I buy stuff all the time. I have my credit card stored in there. Now, keep in mind, Amazon has a very secure payment gateway. PayPal, for example, is a very secure payment gateway. Believe it or not, we install lots of them, authorize.net, but nothing is 100% hack proof, unfortunately. So going back to Amazon, you've got people logging into an account, storing credit cards, making purchases. I don't know, you've probably seen there was a hack going around where people were getting text messages saying, hey, your Amazon account needs your attention, click here. Okay, person clicks on the account, and then now all of a sudden you've inadvertently let in hackers to your Amazon account. I've seen that happen to several clients. And the sad thing is once they get the passwords to those accounts, how often do people change your passwords? If you're somebody that has the same password for every single account, your Facebook, your website, your email accounts, your LinkedIn, that's like opening up the door, because if they get through to one password, guess what? All of your accounts are compromised. So you definitely do not want to have the same passwords for everything. And you want to use a type of, app, like I use Lastpass, for example, and that securely stores my credit cards. But nobody is 100% guaranteed to be hack proof, sadly. So we want to definitely, for those sites that are storing, credit card information, we want to use a secure gateway. And we want to make sure that those sites are monitored by people. There's a lot, for example, I've mentioned before, we use WordPress to build websites, right? There's a number of different security apps and plugins that you can use for WordPress. I don't know, 100,000 out there, right? But nothing really can, but these are automated machines checking for stuff. And, when you have security that's 100% automated, you're going to miss stuff. Yeah. So we have that secure automation, but we also have humans looking at logs to make sure that funny business isn't going on, as I like to call it, because that is what it takes nowadays. So if you're somebody that, isn't practicing, just general good security, you definitely want to start doing that. And then if your website, I'm going to give you an example, like if you have a website on GoDaddy or Wix, be really careful, because you're on a server with 100,000 other websites. and something gets compromised, you're now at risk. So, I don't like the third party hosting companies. I'm not knocking GoDaddy, they have their place, but the security, when I compare the security that we have in place for our websites based on the things that we see going on, and I compare them to GoDaddy, there's no comparison. Like our security is much more heightened for today's issues. Like SSL certificates come with our hosting package. We don't, we have 2 layers of security along with our server. But if anyone's interested, we definitely have a side-by-side comparison between, good website security versus, like a GoDaddy. So we can definitely provide that. And we spent weeks doing that comparison because we knew there were differences, but we really wanted to see side by side what the security differences were, to better protect the clients. So we had to do weeks of research. So we've got that. But there's other things that need to be done too. Like, for example, if you have a WordPress website that hasn't been maintained or none of the plugins or applications have been updated in months, that opens the door for hackers, because what happens is those applications become out of date and the code that they're built with becomes out of date. And hackers see that. And when you have out of date code, hackers will go right in there and find their way in through that outdated code. It's a way for them to go in. So website maintenance is of the utmost importance.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is, I know with all these plugins as well, these publishers, they usually publish their changes, right?
Wrong.
So,
they're supposed to, this is why working with a professional as opposed to doing it yourself, this is the challenge that comes into play when you're not working with a professional. There are 500,000 developers out there creating applications, security applications for WordPress, right? Some of these developers are not great. So, 5-star rating versus, when 30,000 people have used an application versus 1,200 people, that's a really good indication that the 1,200 people are using an app that's not that great. So as professionals, we have scrutinized the developers. We have gone through and looked at their offerings, who has the best support, who is going to notify us when there's a change, because some of the substandard developers won't tell you when there's a change. And sadly, you don't find out until you do maintenance, or unfortunately, when the client calls you up and says, hey, something's broken, So we only work with developers who have credibility, who offer, full support. And we know who these people are because they're in our industry and we work with them. The average layperson who's, doing a do-it-yourself site isn't really going to know to look for that, So the applications you choose absolutely make a difference in the level of security and support you're going to have. Awesome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I know you had mentioned it earlier, and I wanted to circle back to it because I feel like it's not common, but I would assume most people are aware of it. It's that SSL certificate. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when, if I'm someone and I'm going to a website, I'll see that little lock icon next to the URL, correct?
Yes.
Can you kind of talk about, I guess, why that's important, and, should someone go to a website that doesn't have one of those?
SSL, for those of you who don't know, it's just an acronym for a term called secure socket layer. And it just provides an added extra secure layer to your website. And Google actually, as a search engine, started requiring that, I don't know, it's probably been 8 or 10 years now, I think. And yes, it is indicated by the little like HTTPS, that S. So, they require it. And I don't know if you've ever been to a website via Google that doesn't have one, you get the big, you get the big screen that says, it's unsafe to go to this website. Do you want to proceed? Google will still let you go there, but maybe you don't want to proceed because you don't have that secure socket layer. And that really is opening you up to, a hacking incident. Google requires it, but some of the other search engines don't. I know, like to get an SSL with GoDaddy, you pay extra for that. We don't charge extra for that. It's standard in our hosting package because by now it should be a standard feature. So, we have SSL certificates on all of our sites, and, that is only one piece of the puzzle, but yes, I highly recommend everybody have that. And, and there's the credibility thing too. Like, you don't want to send people to your site that doesn't have an SSL and you get the big screen that says, sorry, this is a risk. Can you imagine like a brand new client hitting your site for the very first time and all they see is a message telling them, be careful, the site is not secure. That's a marketing nightmare.
Yeah,
right? They will never come back again. So for that sheer fact alone, I highly recommend that you have it. And while this may seem like common knowledge to everybody, it may not be. So definitely want to have that SSL. But, as far as hosting your website, whether you're going with GoDaddy or somebody else, make sure you ask these questions, to your host. Do you have an SSL certificate or do I have to pay for that? What kind of security do you have? What kind of server are you using? What other means of security? Like, do you know if my website is hacked? Like we have things in place that will like ping our phones in the middle of the night if somebody's, website gets compromised. So we'll know it before you do. And, those are the kinds of things you need in place to stay ahead of these hackers. And I'll tell you what, as somebody working in this industry, I have to tell you, the more things that we come up with to thwart these attacks, the more smarter they get and they come back with something better. And these hacks can be anything from, breaking the site so forms don't work right. You don't really realize it's a hack, but it is, right? Or it could be something as detrimental as, taking down your site and replacing it with a porn site. We've all seen that little trick, haven't we? That is not good for your business, so we want to avoid that. There's no degree as to what they can and can't do. But, once you're a target, it's really hard to get them off of you. I can tell you that, the best security is just prevention. Do everything you can to keep your website and your domain safe. On your, especially like on your domain accounts, like it's okay to have a domain like at GoDaddy, like many of our clients do, and then we just point it to our secure server, right? But for the domain account itself, like in GoDaddy or Bluehost or whatever you're using, make sure that you have two-factor authentication on those accounts as well as all of your social media accounts. Because two-factor authentication has saved me many times. I can't tell you how many times hackers have tried to get into the WBN marketing Instagram account. Numerous times. I think I had 18 pings in one Sunday morning from somebody trying to hack into that account. But because I had two-factor authentication that sent me a confirmation code, they would not open that account until they got that code. So the two-factor authentication is ultra important, and you can put that on your website as well. And that's another feature that we use on our websites is we do two-factor authentication on logins as well. That's something that people have been doing a lot. And you've heard of the Google Authenticator where it sends you a code, right? That's another tool that we use with our website logins.
Yeah, so just to clarify that two-factor authentication, that's when essentially the website or the server, whatever you're using, sends that like, what is it, a 6-digit code, usually to your cell phone. And then you look at that code and then you enter it. I know a lot of people think that's really annoying.
It is. It's, listen, I'm like the first one to tell you it's ultra annoying, but I'll tell you what's more annoying, having your social media and your website hacked and replaced with a porn site. That's more annoying. Trust me on that one. And I'll tell you, it is annoying. I'm not going to lie to you. It's an extra step, but your phone is already with you most of the time. It's super easy just to put in that code. Listen, I probably put confirmation codes in my accounts like 800 times a day because I'm always in them. So I get it. It's super inconvenient, but it's way more inconvenient to find out that your email has been hacked and is now sending bogus emails to your entire, address book, asking them to click on links that will infect their machine. So, or your website is now hacked and it's down and you're no longer making money because your e-commerce site is down right now. So that is a much bigger headache than just simply putting in a code. So unfortunately, it is kind of a way of life now that I feel like we all have to get used to, but it's better than the alternative. And don't forget, like a website hack can cost you money. Like let's say you pay $4,000 to build your absolutely gorgeous website. Hackers get in there and do about $2,500 worth of damage that isn't really covered by a maintenance plan, which is pretty typical. So now we have to go in there and not only get the hackers off the site, but we also have to unblacklist the site with the search engines, and we have to fix the site. So that's a real bummer if you've paid $4,000 for your website and then, 6 months later you get hacked and now you have to pay someone $2,500 additionally to fix the website and get you, unblacklisted with Google. That stinks.
Yeah.
So, you just gotta decide, what's easier, just doing the security or shelling out money to fix your stuff. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, definitely.
It's dire.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about password management. So I know I always hear, especially when it comes to security, that usually a lot of the times the problem could have been alleviated because of a user error. Correct? Is that usually?
When you say user error, what do you like just a weak password or?
Well, you always hear like these like email scams, or if like people just didn't click on things they shouldn't have clicked on, right? Or,
Yep.
things like that. So essentially, I guess, what are some, best practices when it comes to making sure your passwords are secure?
Gotcha.
Maybe it's for your team because, you might be working with the business owner, but, he employs, 5, 10, 15, whatever it is, right? And all of those staff people, they probably have a login for something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I work a lot. I have a really awesome IT provider. I'll give him a little shout out, Joe Goldstein over at OCT IT. Love that guy because he is the king of password security. And he is my go-to guy for my company and my clients. But I can give you some of the information, and thank goodness we have a wonderful IT person to help us with this, because this, a lot of what we do and a lot of what he does crosses over in terms of security. So we talk a lot about this. Best practices, don't use the same password for every account. First and foremost,
everyone's changing their passwords right now.
Right. Everyone's changing their passwords right now. I'll tell you, there's so many tools out there that can make this process easy. Like, for example, I mentioned this before. I use an app called Lastpass. They have a free version. They also have a paid version. But Lastpass it will store all of your passwords in one place with a master password. It has top level security, and it will allow you to change these passwords. You can do passwords up to 50 characters. My email inbox was hacked probably about 2 months ago. I've had this email for 12 years, right? They finally got in, and that Lastpass actually helped me to come up, with a password that literally I put a password in that was 50 characters long of just a mixture of everything. So yeah, make your passwords difficult. And if you use something like LastPass, you're not challenged with having to remember them. Like, if you've got a spreadsheet on your desk with all your passwords that you're storing on your computer as an Excel document, stop doing that.
Titled passwords, right?
Right, titled passwords, right, exactly. Please stop doing that, because God forbid your computer gets hacked, okay? They have access now. And and here's the autosave feature. I love it, where it says, hey, do you want us to save this password so you don't ever have to type it in and you can immediately get in your account? I love the thought of that. Ideally, it's not very practical for security, because again, if your system gets hacked, now the hacker has all of your saved passwords right in your Google, search engine, okay, the autosave. So as much as we love to use those tools, try to refrain from using them and just use your LastPass. And there are other, if you don't like that one, there's other apps out there, but that's generally what they do. And it keeps everything safe and secure. As far as staff, you definitely want to make sure people are changing their passwords. I know it's a pain, but if you've had passwords that are your dog's name and your birth date for 3 years and you haven't changed them, you will be hacked eventually. It's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when. So if you can put these precautions into place, by using a secure app, by making sure people change their passwords frequently. And here's the other thing. I meet a lot of clients that have given credentials to some of their most coveted, accounts to like anybody, like, okay, your domain account, do you have the credential? I don't know, so-and-so had it, or I don't really know what it is anymore. I haven't gotten into that account. I mean, that is unbelievable to me. You should always know where your accounts are and try to refrain from giving everybody access to those accounts, because the less people in there, the less secure it is, because people leave, people get other jobs, they might leave your company. Or I hate to say it, I see this sometimes. I see the disgruntled employee who now has access and keys to the kingdom because you gave it to them and you have nothing in place to offboard that person from all of your credentials once they leave. So if these things seem very daunting to you and you're not sure where to begin, I highly recommend calling an experienced IT person. Because that person can help get all of your, networking, your emails, all of your accounts in order. And what we can help you with here is making sure that your website is also intact and secure. And we work with IT people all the time, in conjunction with each other to make sure everything is secure and that you're working in a secure environment.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful to know that.
Yeah, great advice there. Let's talk a little bit about spam.
Spam.
Everyone hates it, right? It's always there,
Yep.
whether we're talking about, whether it's a form, a comment section. I mean, what are some things that people can do to help combat that?
The sad reality is, and especially post-COVID, we've gotten more spam in our inboxes than ever. And, web forms are definitely a target. And the type of email you're using can help make you more of a target. For example, I had a client who was using a Yahoo email for her, spam, or I'm sorry, for her contact forms on her website to send to her. Well, Yahoo is not a super stable platform. So they were able to get in and start spamming her. What's also another component, like on our website forms, I mean, we have CAPTCHAs. I don't know if maybe people aren't familiar, but like when you go to a form and it says, please add this little equation or put this keyword in so we can tell you that you're a person. And
find all the bytes.
Right. And it's annoying because you're like, I can't understand what the audio is saying, right? That whole thing. Well, there's a reason for that. But, the hackers are getting really smart and some of those CAPTCHAs are not doing the job that they are supposed to be doing, hence opening the floodgates for spam. And I'll tell you another thing, when I talked before about maintaining your plugins, okay, when those plugins go out of date or in need of maintenance, that's when spam starts to hit those contact forms because now the door is open because the plugin is out of date. So that lets spam into your email box as well. So I can tell you this, spam typically, obviously you don't want to ever click on anything from anybody in any email without checking with that person. Okay. But if you're getting an inordinate amount of spam from your website forms, you definitely want to contact your webmaster to see what they can do. If there's added security that they can add to your form. You also want to check your email platform because if you're using Yahoo that does not have great security, those email filters are going to be pretty low. So you want to check your email filters as well. I've even had some clients who've done away with the contact form altogether. I know that sounds crazy and extreme, but you know what? As a person who develops websites, I'm starting to think very seriously about that. Because, you've got a phone number, you've got other call to actions, texting. Maybe it's time to think about not having the form if we're just getting a bunch of spams. There's different ways to do it, but having the CAPTCHAs on the forms are super important. Having email filters in place as well is super important. And your IT guy can help you with that as well. But the sad reality is that you're never going to get rid of it completely. And the degree of how much you get is going to be dependent on your website security and it's going to be dependent on your email platform. But the good news is that most spam that you get from your contact forms are not going to be anything that's going to hurt your inbox unless you click on a link. So you can delete them. You can whitelist the IP address. Some of them have, unfortunately, thousands of IP addresses, but your IT person can help you whitelist a lot of those to combat a lot of that. And then we have some premium paid plugins that we use. I have one on my own website that combats spam really well. But I just want folks to know that the takeaway here is that you're never going to get rid of it completely. Sad but true. But we can certainly, between us and your IT provider, we can certainly help you combat, inordinate amounts of spam.
Yeah, definitely. I know one of the things we talked about before we actually started the podcast was this shift, pre-COVID and COVID now, where, I would say majority of individuals are now either working virtually, working hybrid,
right?
They're spending a lot more time online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there ever was a time in, to care about your security, whether it's for your website, whether it's for your staff, whether it's for your clients' information, now's got to be it, right?
Yes. Unequivocally, my answer is a resounding yes. And I have to tell you, pre-COVID, we saw a lot of hacking and these types of shenanigans going on. There's phishing emails, anything and everything you can think of, fake emails looking like Wells Fargo. I had a client, this is crazy, but I had a client whose hackers were watching and monitoring their Microsoft Outlook emails. So, when they unfortunately told a client that they would be, here's where you can wire your $40,000 deposit. Okay. Which I have to tell you, a big rule, don't ever talk about money in emails or anything. Don't ever put sensitive information in emails because you do not know who is watching. So long story short, they gave wiring instructions to the client to email this $40,000 deposit for a job that they were doing. And as soon as that email went out, the hacker jumped right in and sent the bogus email to the client with bogus wiring instructions and saying, here you go. And they sent the money and the hackers made off with 40 grand. And guess who ate it? The company, not the client. The company had to deal with the $40,000 loss. So it can cost you tons of money. So, yeah, now is a time to put all of these things into effect. And we didn't mention this before, but especially with email, do not talk about money sensitive, account numbers. I'll tell you, if you wouldn't put your bank account number on a billboard on the side of the street, don't put it in your email because you don't know who's watching. They had no idea that the hackers were in the email watching conversations for months. They had no idea. And then when the time was right, they stole money. So now more than ever, those are some of the things we're starting to see now post-COVID. Like they were happening before, but it's just happening more aggressively now. So now is definitely a time to put some of these, precautions into play for sure.
Definitely.
Don't wait till you're hacked and then have to pay tons of money to fix it.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't sound like an ideal situation.
No.
One of the things I want to leave our listeners with, if you could quickly touch on, I know we had mentioned it a lot throughout everything we've been talking about, but really, I guess, bring that message home of why it's so important to, if you don't know what you're doing, you need to work with an expert in this area because it is very technical.
Absolutely. It's very important and it is very technical, and an expert can tell you what you need to do instead of you guessing, because there's a lot of options. There's a lot of applications. There's a lot of technology out there. And you may not know what to do, what's best for your company. Every company is different, whether you have 3 employees or 300. It's not, a one size fits all. So if you're not sure where to begin, or if you're thinking you can manage this yourself, I highly recommend you speak with, either myself or an IT professional or both, just to see what's going to be the best fit for your company. That's probably what I would say is the takeaway there. Don't wait till it costs you money and something detrimental happens. And, and just remember, you're not the only one at risk. Your clients are at risk too, and you have an obligation to protect them as well. So definitely speak with a professional so that you go into this with eyes wide open and know exactly what you're going to need to do for your company.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Noah. Speaking of
You're so welcome.
speaking with a professional, if our listeners have any more questions they want to follow up with you, how can they do that?
Absolutely. Well, you can reach us a number of ways. If you Google WBN Marketing of Florida, we come up every time. You can go to our website as well, which is wbn-marketing.com, or you can call me directly. I'm always here to answer questions. I love educating and answering questions for people. And my direct number is 239-919-0933.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Noah.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss another show. Join other professionals looking to grow their business with Southwest Florida Inc. at swflinc.com and sign up for a free membership today. Thanks so much for listening to Business Builders. We'll see you next time.